So this is the Erica Synths Techno System. This is a modular drum machine with 10 drum voices and a single monophonic bassline synthesizer as well. We've also got dual multi-effects unit here and this dual drive. It comes with this nice booklet which tells you a bit about each module. It gives you patch examples and yeah, so it comes like that. It also comes in this nice box, as you can see just about here. You can see under here. And we also have a lid for that as well. So, as I said, it's a 10 voice drum machine. So first of all, let's just have a listen to some of those drum voices. So first of all, let's have a listen to the kick drum, because obviously that's quite important for a techno system. So I've just got a 4/4 going. We've got pitch, attack, which you can hear just adds a little bit of white noise. And then we've got tune, which is a decay envelope on the pitch, so get that real thump of a kind of 909 style kick. And it can go kind of much more than you would need. Then we've got decay, which can go from like endless to. Then we've got drive. We can also drive on the mixer as well, so we do get a kind of lot of gain everywhere in this system. And we've got compression as well, which adds a bit more kind of gain. You can hear it. So moving on, let's have a listen to the snare drum. So we've got tune, snappy, decay, and the pitch, the noise tone as well. And then we've got CV. Forgot to mention actually, we've got CV over pitch, decay, and drive on the kick drum. We've got CV over tune and decay on the snare. So lots of flavours of snare in there. So moving on again, we've got now tom-toms. So I'm just going to submix these into the mixer light. So there's my tom-toms. So we've got control of tune and decay. And then we've got CV over tune as well. So just bring the other bits back in. So moving on, we've got a clap. So again, I'm going to put this into the submixer. So let's just go over to the clap track here. So again, we've got our clap there. We've got decay and tone. And we've only got CV over the tone here. So again, moving on, we've got our hi-hats. So if we take the output here, if you notice as well, I'm not plugging in any of the triggers here. So these are actually connected, all of the drum modules are actually connected via ribbon cables on the back. So that does actually cut down on cable clutter quite a lot. So anyway, here's my hats. These are kind of, all the kind of drum voices are very 909 style kind of sounding. But yeah, let's listen to these hats because there's a few kind of little tweaks which kind of make them quite interesting. So there's my hi-hats. They sound very 909-ish. So we can do this loop thing, so we can loop the sample basically. So you can hear that sample looping there. And then we've got this kind of VCA shape which allows you to it basically just allows you to open up the VCA so you can quite easily create kind of breaks and stuff. Anyway, so let's just turn that off and then finally we've got this cymbals section. So I'll just mute some of these out again. But let's just listen to the crash first. Basically, you've got various different samples that we can take our cymbals from. So we'll listen to the crash here. So you can make, I mean, that doesn't really sound like a crash anymore. So there are lots of different sounds in here. And then we've got the ride as well. And again, we can loop like we can with, so if I loop that. So again, kind of just more percussive sounds, not necessarily cymbals and crash and ride. But yeah, that's the kind of, I suppose, the voices within the system. So all of my drum voices are along the top here, and the bassline synthesizer. We've also got two kind of modulators or LFOs, a multi kind of different waves with 4 outputs. We can sync these. We've also got 2 LFOs within the sequencer as well. And then this section here is more about mixing and effects. So we've got 3 mixers. We've got the mixer light, the drum mixer, and the stereo mixer. So the drum mixer is a 7-channel mixer with auxiliary sends on the first 3 channels, and then compression and a release amount. We've then got the mixer light, which is a 6-channel mixer with 3 auxiliary channels as well, so they can be sent to the auxiliary output. We've then got the dual drive, which is two kind of drive circuits with 3 different kind of modes for each section of drive, and one chains into the other, so you get this kind of, you can double up on the gain and the distortion. The same with the effects. You put 1 input here and it doubles over to the second set of effects. So we've got 2 multi-effects units, and we'll go through those a bit later. And then we've got a 4-channel stereo mixer. So this just allows you to take your stereo outputs and mix them into this link section, which is basically just a converter from mini jack to 1/4 inch. So let's have a look at programming the CV and gate channel. So first of all, we just select the CV and gate channel by hitting trigger and then encoder number 2. We then we can program the triggers in this page, and then we hit this one to program the notes. So there's 2 steps to programming the CV and gate channel, so that is a little bit kind of cumbersome. We can then hit the track scale, and we can knock the scale into the CV track into various different scales. Would be nice to see like a user scale or something, but I'm sure that's probably something that they can do in a firmware update. So when we're programming the CV channel, we can change the normal things that we can change on the trigger channels, so length, scale, etc. But then when we hit the to program the notes, we hit this first encoder, and we can change the note and the octave and then the length. But we can also add a slide or a tie. So if I want to add a slide to that across these 2 patterns, I can, across these 2 notes, I can hit those, and then we get this little thing down here which tells us that we've got a slide there. If I wanted to program a tie, I can go all the way across on the length, and it just gives us a tie. So that's how we would program the CV channel. So let's have a quick kind of overview of the drum sequencer. We've got 16 banks of 16, so you just hold bank and then select A, B, C, etc. We then can just select the pattern when we're in pattern play mode. We can also at this point chain patterns, so I've just got 2 here. Let's just chain those, so I'll just select those 2. See that we can chain patterns. So programming the tracks is relatively easy. We just hit trigger select and then select the track that we want to program. So we can see this little plus sign down here. This means that we've got accents enabled. So to enable an accent on a track, you just hit shift and then track select, and then the double tap will make a brighter light, which will give you an accent on that step. Now we can also add probability to steps, so we hit shift and then select a step. So you can see here I've got every 4 times this goes around, it's going to give this trigger. So we can listen to that by there you go. See, on this probability page, we can also program a re-trigger. So we just scroll along using these 2 and then change the division of re-trigger or probability, or we can also do micro timing. We can also turn on and off the kind of playhead follow. Continuing on, we can do shuffle per track. We can do mutes. There's some kind of clever things with the mutes. We can obviously mute in and out stuff. But if we hold shift and then hold a channel, we can solo it. And then we just hit it again to go back. So it can be quite useful for breaks and stuff. We can also do fills on each channel. If we go into tap mode, so at the moment we're in step mode, we can go into enter tap mode. So this now tells us that we're in tap mode. We can then, so if I hit shift and then step, now we're in fill mode. So I can just play fills. But if I want to record that, I hit record, and now I can change the division of fill. So you can see that the sequencer is quite intense and there's a lot of stuff going on. We can also change the last step per track as well. So we can there's two ways that you can do that. You can either hold last step and then just change the length manually like so, or you can just go to the length of each step and then go up to 64 or anywhere in between. We can also change that globally by hitting pattern and then last step, and then we can change the global pattern to be 64. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on with the sequencer that allows you to really kind of dial in the synth and or the drum machine and get a lot out of it. So let's have a look at this bassline synthesizer. So what we've got here is a single monophonic line with a subwave and then this kind of detune feature to make it sound like it's a detuned, multiple oscillators detuned, when it's actually just a short bucket brigade delay. So let's start with the triangle wave. So I've got the VCA all the way open. So this is my kind of decay section. So I'll open up the filter and you'll start to hear the triangle. So I've just got a line programmed here from the sequencer. So there's a lot of low end in the triangle there. Sawtooth. Square. So I'm just going to increase some of the resonance so you can hear the filter. The resonance is very nice. It does get quite clippy. I think this is based on the Erica Synths Polyvox, so you can hear that resonance is just breaks up really nicely. We're on the low pass mode as well. There is a bandpass filter as well. I'll go through that now. So again, back to the triangle. So then we'll go back to the low pass here and we'll listen to, start with the triangle, add some of the subwave in. Adding some of this detune effect. Starts to get really thick and nice. let's just listen to these dual effects quickly. So the way I've got this set up is I've just got a very simple thing, just a kick drum and a bass line. They're going into this mixer here. The first 3 channels do have this auxiliary switch, so that allows you to switch in the send to an auxiliary. So I've sent that to the dual effects, and then one effect chains into the other. I've also taken out a mono out of one of the effects and gone back into the mixer on a channel that isn't sending to the auxiliary. And that is kind of, I've been doing that a bit, and then using some of the compression, and say if you've got a reverb and then you're coming in on a channel and then you're compressing, you get like that kind of nice pumping kind of thing going on. So anyway, let's just hear it dry, then we'll add some of the effects, and I'm just gonna kind of flick through them quickly. So that's the kind of dry thing. Let's just put in some of the compression so you can hear it's very kind of coloured. Now if we start to listen to some of these effects, so that's my first one, is obviously a delay. Feedback and time. Then we're into the reverbs. Now what I was talking about earlier about feeding this back in with the compression. So if I take this one, I just take a mono output from the reverb and then so you get the idea anyway. You can now this is a kind of weird kind of building thing that just infinite feedback thing. So that would be good for kind of creating build-ups and stuff. We then get a distortion, I think. Oh no, that's... That's the pitch shifter, so good for making drones and stuff. But yeah, so this kind of dual effects, they do sound quite good. And I do quite like the way that they chain one into the other, so you can get these weird kind of routings. But they're not, I wouldn't say they're the plushest of effects, but they are very useful. And I guess the idea of the whole kind of system is at the end you have a kind of, you can make a processed drum machine sort of sound. So overall, the Erica Synths Techno System is very nice. First thing, build quality is very good. It feels solid, especially the sequencer. These 909 style kind of programmer buttons are very nice. Everything feels solid and proper, as you would expect, because the price is quite high. But if you think about it as in comparison to something like a 909, like a vintage 909, they go for upwards of £3,000 anyway. So this is 3,690 euros, which by today's exchange rate is around 3,280. So in comparison to something like a vintage 909, it's not that dissimilar in terms of price, and you do get a lot more with the Techno System. Obviously, the sequencer is much more modern and can do a lot more than the 909 sequencer. And you get effects, you get various different kind of mixer routings. You also get the monophonic line, obviously, as well. Kind of this whole section is just audio routing, so you can really kind of focus on just taking all your audio sources into this kind of mixer area and effects area and come up with these interesting like parallel processing kind of routes and stuff like that. So like the dual drive, I really enjoyed using that as an auxiliary send and then modulating the drive, that sort of thing. And the same with the effects, kind of routing effects back into the mixer to then be compressed by the compression can yield some quite interesting effects. Generally, I think it is lacking a little bit in modulation. So essentially we've got 4 LFOs, because we've got 2 LFOs from the sequencer itself, and they can be clocked or unclocked, and then we've got the modulator, which can be triggered via the sync inputs from a trigger source. Overall, I think it sounds very good, but because we've got gain on every channel, we do end up pushing the noise floor a bit. So that's kind of okay when we're lashing out kind of hard techno and like very loud kind of sounding techno. That's kind of fine because you don't really hear the noise floor once you've got everything going. But if you wanted to do kind of more lower level, kind of minimal techno, that sort of stuff, I would maybe find that quite hard on the system, because everything seems to be driven, so it tends to get quite aggressive quite quickly. So if you're into that, that's cool, but if you wanted to dial it back a bit, it can be quite hard. Having said that, I do like the way that the distortion and the gain sounds, so I think it's more of a kind of taste thing. If you're into the sound of the gain and the overdriven sound, then this could really work for you. If you're not, then it might be harder to make it work for you. But yeah, overall, I think it's a great system. And although it is expensive, it's not that expensive if you consider that you get a really nice case with a lid, so a travel system and handle and everything. You get cables, you get a sequencer that's much better than something like a 909. If you're into the idea of just making hard techno, then this is definitely the kind of thing that you want to start looking at. Anyway, thanks for watching.